All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just kind of reflect on what we talked about. We talked about our WWE NXT Spring Break-In preview, and also with Trick Williams being the next guy, what we can expect from him moving forward. What exactly is in store for Ilya Dragunov? Like I said before, a couple of past, NXT superstars who made it up to the main card didn't really necessarily find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but hopefully it's different for Ilya. Hopefully it is different under the Paul Levesque era. So, wish the best for him in his future endeavors. Next, we have our AEW Dynamite preview. It's going to be pretty off the hook, but before we move on, we're going to talk about our tips and donations link. Why don't you guys like talking to me? I'm just kidding. We get a number of questions that come in from viewers like you. So to ensure that your question gets read on air all over the world, I urge you guys to use the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net with your questions. Just put your questions on my top so I can see it, so we can talk about it. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you want to talk about in this podcast. Tell me your views on NXT. Tell me your views on AEW. Tell me if what I'm talking about isn't up to par, although it's impossible because I am like the best wrestling podcaster in the world. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was over cocky. I don't want to overdo it. Oh God, please God, no bad karma. No, but ultimately, I'm here, guys. I'm here to talk. Again, the link is at gsmcpodcast.net with with your questions or statements or positive feedback on my new haircut. I promised you guys a new haircut. And we'll just say, looking good. I'm just kidding. I'm just being a dork. Sorry, guys. I'm a dorky wrestling fan. I hope y'all are dorks with me. King of the dorks. King of the dorks. I'm just kidding. Let's move on to wrestling. We're talking about wrestling. All right. We're going to go on to our AEW Dynamite preview taking place tonight in Dally's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Tonight we have Chuck Taylor to choose between Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta, of course, formerly known as the Best Friends. And of course, Chuck Taylor had to ruin it all. Why'd you have to break up the Best Friends, man? You guys were so good together. Usually it's that one, that selfish, those ambitions. It's like, you know what? You want to be a singles guy wrestler? Go and get out of here, man. Get out of here. Why am I talking Italian? Or trying to, what's happening? No, anyways, so that's going to be addressed tonight. Also, what's also going to be addressed tonight, and what I feel like should kind of be addressed is, this whole thing with Chris Jericho. Why do people hate Chris Jericho? I don't understand. After the match with Hook, he eventually won. Winning the AEW FTW Championship, and everybody was just dogging him, man. Even chants were like, "Please retire." Please retire. And do you guys know what Chris Jericho has done for your brand? Do you AEW, fans know exactly who the Ayatollah of rock and roll is? And by all means, yes, I'm a WWE fan. And yes, I watched Chris Jericho growing up. And I maybe might have kind of like a biased point of view toward this. But ultimately, you kind of have to think of, kind of these things before you go ahead and, insult him like that. You know what I mean? Well, starting off, we have he joined AEW in the startup in of January 19. So this guy has been with you since the beginning of 2019. Unbelievable. So he was there during the pre-pandemic where you had this startup of, yeah, let's build a wrestling promotion to take down Vince McMahon. And everyone's like, have you seen wrestling promotions that tried to take down Vince McMahon? Guess what? They're unemployed. Or they're employed by Vince McMahon. So that's something you have to admire Jericho on. And also, you have him sticking during the pandemic. The pandemic where people were urged to stay at home. There was no ticket sales, no merchandise, nothing at the stadium going down. So whenever it was like, yeah, can we have a wrestling fandom at your arena? They're like, why? Why, think if you're the owner of the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Hey, can we have a pay-per-view of wrestling at your venue? And think of, are you selling tickets? No. Huh. Do we get a percentage of the merchandise being sold at the venue? No. That's a pretty that's a big pass on this pet on this end. You know what I mean? Like it's a no-brainer. And I feel like a lot of people don't give Chris Jericho kind of like that, kind of like that credit. And he was the inaugural AEW World Champion. Usually when a world champion is crowned, you think back in terms of like WWE, the NWA, also a TNA, you kind of make sure that first guy that you crown as champion, look at, Cody Rhodes in this new Paul Levesque era. I know it's not a new promotion and I might be comparing apples to oranges here, but essentially it's the same thing. Essentially, you kind of have a new era of wrestling, you know, AEW, they have to put a strap on a guy that could put butts in the seats, sell big promos, and who could keep the fans at the edge of your seat. And who was the inaugural champion in AEW? Chris Jericho. So I might be, more hot on Chris Jericho than a lot of you guys are, but honestly, he deserves it. He started it all. He started it all. He held the company afloat, and he was able to help it kind of like propel it into the next step. So ultimately, you kind of have to give Chris Jericho a little bit of, you have to pay your respects for one of the quote unquote like founding fathers of the AEW. One of those things where you kind of think it's like, so is there an AEW without Chris Jericho? Is there? Is there really? I honestly don't think so. I'm gonna, obviously, if you have comments, use the tips or donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. But honestly, like I honestly don't think there's a successful AEW industry without Chris Jericho. Because Chris Jericho, he came from WWE. He knew the insides and outs. He knew exactly what Vince McMahon was all about. And for him to kind of like, kind of formulate creativity and also, talk to his team of wrestlers and be like, look, like Vince McMahon, he has nothing on you guys. It's the same product over and over and over again, which is the reason why a lot of wrestling fans jump ship to AEW. They just wanted something new. Absolutely. And who could better tell you how to produce something new that Vince McMahon's not doing with someone like Chris Jericho, who's been with the company for 10 plus years. So their success a lot on Chris Jericho's back there. I believe that 110%. And like when he made it to AEW, he didn't just walk in and take the championship. He defeated some of the best guys in the independent wrestling scene, like Kenny Omega, Hangman Alan Page. The list goes on and on and on. So just remember, and then Chris Jericho went on to create one of the biggest factions in AEW history, the Inner Circle, with Sammy Guevara, Jack Hager, Santana, and Ortiz. And if you think about it, the best thing about Chris Jericho is that he can really honestly be asserted into any type of stable, fandom, storyline, or title picture. And it just fits. It works. Chris Jericho works with everything. He's like salt or he's like butter. When in terms of like, potatoes, you add no, what is it? Oh man. I work as a chef at freaking senior living facility. And I heard somebody once say that cheese makes everything better. And so is Chris Jericho the cheese of AEW? Perhaps. Perhaps. That's pretty cool. He might cause, I'm just kidding. No, we're not going there. We're not going there. But ultimately, Chris Jericho deserves a lot of, you can honestly kind of sum up his career in AEW as an experienced veteran that was signed to bring credibility to a young promotion like AEW. They needed somebody like that, like Chris Jericho. And he was honestly one of the key attractions in AEW from week after week after week in terms of television broadcast. So, honestly, next time you AEW fans are ready to boo the Ayatollah of rock and roller Chris Jericho, just remember that he's done quite a bit for you. He's done quite a bit for you. You got to pay your respects, bro. All right, well, moving on to AEW. I know I went on a rant there a little bit, and we're kind of running short on time. So much to get to, with a little amount of time. Next, we're going to talk about Willow of Nightingale. She's going to have a title celebration tonight. Well, title celebration tonight. Um, I think it's going to be interrupted by Mercedes Mone, obvi. We also have the Julia Hart, former WWE TBS champion, probably is going to find a way to crash it. Um, Ultimately, I feel like something's going to happen here that's going to force like a triple threat match going toward Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. But honestly, like It's been confirmed that Julia Hart wasn't behind the blackout attack on Mercedes Monet. I don't know how much Willow of Nightingale has to do with it, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good right now. Mercedes Monet, she doesn't trust anybody. Kind of like when in terms of like a new wrestler, like a new coworker, you walk in any place and you're like DTA, bro. Stone Cold Steve Austin's DTA. Don't trust anybody. And that's kind of what Mercedes Monet's doing toward like Willow of Nightingale. And of course, you kind of have that nostalgia effect. Willow of Nightingale was the last person Mercedes Monet fought in her match where she was ultimately pushed off the top rope, headed toward the outside, landed on the concrete, breaking her foot and basically in half. And she was told by the doctors that she would never ever ever make it back to the wrestling scene ever again. Ultimately, she's back and against who in her first match? Willow of Nightingale. So nothing like a little bit of uh justifiable poetry, so to speak. And so we have a match between Mina Shirakawa against Anna Jay. I've been high on Anna Jay for the longest time. I think that she's going to get a push in AEW, probably sooner than later, or maybe perhaps Impact Wrestling, but her time is definitely coming. And to kind of finish it off, we have our Swerve Strickland, Kyle Fletcher match in the AEW World Championship Eliminator. Kyle Fletcher has been kind of like the new kid on the block. He's kind of the new sauce. He's a new sauce. So, he definitely has what it takes to be a champion. Against Swerve, newly champion who won it at AEW, defeated the impossible. He did the impossible and defeated the Samoan submission machine in Samoa Joe. But honestly, I don't see really Kyle Fletcher like kind of being over right now with the company. So I think more or less this is kind of just like a nice little match for Swerve to kind of introduce himself as the AEW World Heavyweight Champion and probably come out the AEW World Champion. Well, of course, I don't think this is a title contention match, but yeah. Anyways, so hey, our next topic we're going to talk about with WWE draft in the mix, especially happening in like 2 days on Friday Night SmackDown. We're going to talk about memorable WWE draft moments that kind of help, kind of stake a claim that careers are changed at the WWE draft, and sometimes legends are made. So hey, don't go anywhere.